At her sister's engagement party, under fancy lights and smiling faces, Anita's 10-year-old daughter Sophia was slapped so hard by her own aunt that she fell to the floor, crying in front of 200 silent guests. Instead of stopping her, Anita's parents blamed them and told them to leave. That night, she didn't just lose her family. What happened after that slap didn't just ruin their party. It exposed the truth they had tried to hide for years. And this time, everyone saw it. Anita was 35 years old, a widow, and the mother of a 10-year-old girl who saved her in more ways than she ever expected. This wasn't just a story about a party gone wrong. It was about the night everything cracked open. The masks, the family lies, and the silence she kept for too long. If someone saw her on the street, they'd probably think she had things under control. She lived in a quiet part of Los Angeles, in a 2-bedroom apartment that once belonged to her husband. It wasn't a palace, but it was theirs. He had passed away 3 years ago in a highway accident. One second, he was on the phone with her telling her he'd be home late, and the next, she was signing his death certificate. Since then, she had raised their daughter, Sophia, alone. Sophia was 10 now. Kind, creative, a little shy, and she had the kind of eyes that noticed everything. Anita did her best to keep life stable for her. She worked freelance from home as a digital illustrator. They had their routines, morning cereal, weekend library visits, and late-night Disney movies with popcorn. But peace was a delicate thing when her family believed she was a mistake they never wanted. Her parents, Judith and Raphael, never truly forgave her for marrying beneath their class, as they called it. They barely acknowledged her husband when he was alive. And after he died, they acted like she had chosen widowhood just to shame them further. As for her younger sister, Agatha, she was always their perfect porcelain doll. Blonde, brilliant, beautiful, and now a successful lifestyle influencer with nearly 2 million followers. Every photo, every caption, every perfect moment was calculated, choreographed, and praised. Anita was the forgotten daughter, the inconvenient one. And then last week, something unexpected happened. She received a thick cream-colored envelope in the mail, the kind that smelled faintly of perfume and privilege. Inside was a formal invitation. You are cordially invited to the engagement celebration of Agatha James and Clinton Johnson. Location: the Skyline Rooftop, Los Angeles. Dress code formal. RSVP required. There was no personal note. No, we'd love to see you. Just a name, a date, and a reminder that she still existed, barely. She looked at Sophia. The girl was spinning in their small kitchen, her socks sliding across the tiles. She caught a glimpse of the envelope in her mother's hand. "Is that from Grandma?" she asked, eyes hopeful. Anita hesitated. "It's from Aunt Agatha. She's getting engaged." Sophia's eyes lit up. "Are we invited?" Anita wanted to say no. She wanted to tear it in half. But instead she said, "Yes, we are." She didn't know then that accepting that invitation would change everything. Sophia spent the next few days obsessing over what to wear. She eventually chose a soft lavender dress with embroidered daisies on the sleeves, the same one she wore to her last school recital. She twirled in front of the mirror, arms out like she was catching sunlight. "Do you think Aunt Agatha will like it?" she asked. Anita forced a smile. "She'll love it, sweetheart." She didn't say what she was really thinking. If she even bothers to notice you. The Skyline Rooftop was everything she expected: glamorous, excessive, cold. Glass walls wrapped around the rooftop, offering a glittering view of Los Angeles. Soft jazz played in the background. Waiters moved through the crowd in black ties, carrying golden trays of cocktails and oranges. Sophia held tightly to her mother's hand as they stepped in. Almost immediately, Anita felt it. The shift in the room, the glances, the forced smiles. The air around them thickened, as if they had disturbed something sacred just by walking through the door. Her mother, Judith, spotted them from across the room. She approached in a navy blue satin gown, her hair twisted into a tight bun, her expression sharp enough to cut. She gave her daughter a nod so small it was nearly a dismissal. Then she turned to Sophia. "Who let you come here?" she hissed under her breath. "This is an elegant event, not a playground." Before Anita could say a word, Judith placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder and pushed her. Not forcefully, but hard enough to make her stumble. Sophia, already nervous, wobbled on her feet. And that's when it happened. The glass of red punch she had been holding slipped from her hand. Time slowed. The punch flew through the air, arching in a perfect crimson wave, and landed directly on Agatha's pristine ivory gown. A loud gasp rippled through the guests. Agatha stood frozen, staring down at the stain blooming across her midsection like a wound. Then her eyes snapped to Sophia. "You stupid little girl," she shouted. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You ruined my dress." She raised her hand and, without hesitation, slapped Sophia across the face. The sound echoed, sharp and violent. Sophia let out a yelp and collapsed into sobs. Her hands flew to her cheek as her body folded in shame and fear. Anita rushed forward, dropped to her knees, and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "What is wrong with you?" she screamed at Agatha. Before Agatha could answer, Judith stepped in. "You never should have brought her here," she spat. "You've embarrassed us enough." Her father, Raphael, appeared beside her. His expression was stiff, his voice flat. "Take your daughter and go." Anita stood up slowly, trembling. "I just need to explain." "No," Judith barked. "Security." 2 black-suited guards arrived. Anita didn't resist. She picked up her sobbing daughter and held her tight as they were escorted through the room like criminals. Behind them, she heard whispers, phones clicking, champagne glasses clinking. Agatha stood tall, her ruined gown clinging to her, lips curled in disgust. And just before Anita reached the exit, she caught a glimpse of Tina, an old friend from college. Her face was pale. Her phone was raised. She was filming. That night, she sat on the edge of her bed in silence. The apartment was lit only by the faint orange glow of the street lamp outside. Sophia had cried herself to sleep. Her cheek still held the faint red outline of Agatha's hand. She dabbed it gently with a cold cloth, her own hands shaking too much to hold it steady. She stared at the walls of their apartment, their safe place. The only thing left of a life she had built with her husband. The walls were lined with Sophia's drawings, a chipped bookshelf he had assembled, a crooked photo of the 3 of them at the beach. And still, she had let them hurt her. She had walked her right into it. She was drowning in guilt when her phone buzzed. A message. It was from Tina. "Hey, I don't know if you saw me at the party, but I recorded what happened. All of it. I couldn't just stand there. Do you want me to send it?" Her breath caught. Her fingers hovered over the screen. "Yes," she typed, barely able to move. Seconds later, the video downloaded. She opened it. There it was. Every second. The crowd. The tension. Judith's harsh whisper. Sophia stumbling. The punch flying. Agatha's slap. Her own screams. Her parents' orders. Security dragging them out. Sophia's sobs. It played like a horror film starring the people who were supposed to protect them. Tears spilled down her face. Not from sadness this time, but from fury. She played it again. This time she watched their faces carefully. Agatha's disgust. Judith's authority. Raphael's indifference. And in the background, guests staring, watching, doing nothing. They all saw it. They all knew. She walked to the living room and found Sophia curled up on the couch, a stuffed fox pressed against her chest. Her eyes fluttered open. "Mommy," she whispered. "I'm here, baby," she said, kneeling beside her. Sophia looked at her, her voice small. "Was it my fault?" "No," she said firmly. "None of it was your fault." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I didn't mean to ruin anything. I just wanted to be part of the family." She hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. And then Sophia did something she would never forget. She sat up, took the phone, and opened the video. Her voice calm but steady, she said, "People should know the truth." She recorded herself sitting cross-legged, her swollen cheeks still visible. "My name is Sophia. I'm 10 years old. Yesterday, I went to my Aunt Agatha's engagement party. I spilled a drink by accident. She hit me. Then they kicked us out. That was all. Simple. Honest." Her fingers trembled as she held the phone. Tina had done her part. Now it was her turn. She didn't know what would happen when the world saw the truth. But she knew one thing. She wasn't going to stay silent anymore. The next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds. Warm and indifferent, like the world hadn't watched her child get assaulted and thrown out like trash just hours before. Sophia was still asleep when she opened her laptop. Her hands hovered over the keyboard as she typed. "Child assault lawyer near me." She had never filed a legal case in her life, but something had shifted in her. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was a shield. By noon, she had an appointment with attorney Beverly Simon, a child advocacy specialist recommended by Tina. Beverly had helped families in abuse cases, and when Anita told her what happened, she didn't flinch. "You have video proof?" Beverly asked. She handed her the phone. Beverly watched in silence. When the slap echoed through the tiny office, she paused, looked up, and said, "We're filing criminal charges for child physical assault against Agatha James. We'll also add emotional neglect and endangerment charges against your parents, Judith and Raphael." The words were cold and precise, just what she needed. That evening, she sat down with Sophia and explained what she was doing. "This isn't just to punish them," she told her. "It's to make sure they can never hurt you or anyone else again." Sophia nodded, her little fingers wrapped around her stuffed fox. "Are we going to win?" she asked. "We already did," she said quietly. "The moment you told the truth." By the next day, a restraining order was filed against Agatha, Judith, and Raphael. They were legally barred from approaching them or contacting Sophia in any way. Attorney Simon submitted the video to the court as primary evidence along with Sophia's recorded statement. They filed the case in family court and juvenile protection services under California's Child Protection Act. Beverly explained that slapping a minor in a non-parental role, especially at a public event, was a criminal offense. And because Judith and Raphael failed to intervene and instead helped throw them out, they were also responsible. It wasn't just a case. It was a message. You don't get to hit a child and walk away clean. Not anymore. That same night, she received a call from the court's assigned child welfare officer. The officer had seen the video. "We'll be doing a follow-up at your residence," the officer said gently. "Not because we doubt you, but because we want to show this child has someone who stood up for her." She looked across the room at Sophia, drawing quietly at the kitchen table. "Yes," she said, voice steady. "She does." She never expected what came next. Tina had asked for her permission before sharing the video online. At first, she hesitated. She wasn't interested in turning their pain into internet drama. But then she watched Sophia's recorded voice again. The strength in her 10-year-old words, the quiet heartbreak in her eyes. "This isn't revenge," she told Tina. "It's truth." She posted it that evening. A clip of Sophia speaking softly followed by the raw footage of the party. The punch spilling, the slap, the cries, the crowd silence. There was no music, no editing, no filters. By morning, it had over 200,000 views. By lunch, #JusticeForSophia was trending on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Parenting bloggers reposted it. News pages picked it up. Activists weighed in. Celebrities commented. Unacceptable. She's a child. People weren't just watching. They were enraged. Why did no one stop her? Where were the other guests? This is what happens in perfect families behind closed doors. And beneath it all, one sentence echoed everywhere. "Sophia, we believe you." Agatha tried to respond. Of course she did. 2 days after the post went viral, she uploaded a heavily edited video to her page. Soft piano playing in the background. Her makeup carefully done to look undone. Her voice trembling just enough. "I'm deeply sorry for how things looked," she said. "But I was under immense stress. There was a misunderstanding. I love my niece." She never said Sophia's name, never mentioned the slap. Instead, she suggested that the incident had been manipulated by people trying to harm her brand. Then came the worst part. She implied Anita had encouraged Sophia to act out for attention. Anita was shaking when she watched it. Sophia, who had been coloring quietly next to her, looked up. "She's lying," she said calmly. "I know," Anita replied. But the world wasn't buying Agatha's performance. Her comments section exploded. "She hit a kid and now she's crying for followers." "Anita, we believe you and your daughter. Save the fake tears. The internet has receipts." Agatha started bleeding followers. Brands distanced themselves. Her upcoming product launches were canceled within 48 hours. Sponsors issued statements condemning her actions. It was a storm, but for once it wasn't raining on Anita and Sophia. Tina called and said, "They thought they could control the story, but you changed the ending." Anita wasn't celebrating, but she was breathing. Sophia asked, "Are we safe now?" Anita nodded. "We're getting there." It was the third night after the video went viral when Anita heard a knock at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone. She looked through the peephole and froze. Clinton, Agatha's fiancé, or maybe not anymore, stood in the hallway wearing the same suit from the engagement party, jacket off, tie loosened, eyes heavy with something between guilt and shock. She opened the door slowly. "Hi," he said quietly. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" She didn't move. She waited. "I saw the video," he continued. And the comments. I didn't know what to say until now, but I needed to say something. She stepped aside and let him in. Sophia peeked up from the couch where she was holding her stuffed fox. Her eyes widened when she saw him, but she didn't say anything. Clinton knelt beside her. I'm so sorry for what happened to you, he said softly. What Agatha did, what your family did, it was wrong. And you were really brave to speak up. Sophia gave a small nod and looked down. He stood and turned to Anita. I didn't want to believe it, he said. But after I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. She offered him a glass of water, which he didn't touch. He just stared into the distance like he was trying to piece something together. There's more, he said. After everything happened, I couldn't sleep. I remember Agatha had mentioned working with a PR team for the engagement, so I checked the shared email folder from our wedding planning. He pulled out his phone and opened a series of emails. There were messages between her and her manager. She was negotiating a $500,000 brand deal for our wedding content behind my back, and she made it clear she was planning to push a prenup that would favor her once the hype died down. Then she'd move on. My mouth went dry, he said quietly. She never loved me. She loved the image of me. Anita didn't know what to say. Then Clinton added, I broke it off this morning. I told her mother. I've already ended all pending business deals and canceled the brand contracts. Sophia looked up from the couch. Does that mean you're not going to marry Agatha? Clinton gave her the gentlest smile Anita had ever seen. No, Sophia. I'm not. He turned to Anita one last time. You were right, Anita, about all of them. And I'm sorry it took this long for me to see it. And then he left. And for the first time in years, Anita felt like someone had finally stood beside her. Not because they were expected to, but because it was the right thing to do. 3 days later, Anita received an email marked urgent. It was from her father. We need to talk. This has gone too far. A private resolution meeting has been scheduled. Attendance is expected. No apology, no remorse, just expectation. She stared at the screen, heat rising in her chest. For years, she would have deleted something like this without a second thought. But this time she didn't. She forwarded it to attorney Beverly Simon, who replied with a single line. If you go, don't go alone. She took Beverly's advice legally and emotionally. She told her she'd handle herself, but she made sure Sophia stayed with Eleanor during the meeting, just in case. The venue was a neutral office space in Beverly Hills. Classy, quiet, and personal. When she entered the room, Agatha sat with her arms crossed and sunglasses on, like she was shielding herself from shame. Her mother, Judith, wore a pressed cream blouse and a rehearsed look of concern. Raphael didn't even look up. She took a seat directly across from them, calm and still. Agatha was the first to speak. You've embarrassed this family beyond belief. She said nothing. You let your daughter post lies online. They weren't lies, she cut in. Judith sighed. Anita, this could have been handled privately like adults. You mean swept under the rug? She asked. Like everything else? You've always been dramatic, Judith snapped. You're doing this to make us look bad. She leaned forward and met her eyes, unshaken. No, you made yourselves look bad. And then Clinton walked in. Everyone turned. I've heard enough, he said. Agatha, you used me. You used your niece. You tried to twist the truth to save your image. He placed a folder on the table. These are formal terminations of all business contracts we had. I've pulled every investor, the wedding's off, and I want nothing to do with you or the circus. Agatha's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked like she was watching her world crumble in real time. Raphael finally spoke. Clinton, let's not make a scene. You already did, Clinton said coldly. As she stood to leave, Agatha shouted after her. You always wanted this, didn't you? To ruin me. She paused at the door, turned, and said quietly, No, I wanted you to love us. But since that was too hard, at least now we're free. And then she walked out. Sophia was waiting in the next room, coloring with Monica. When she saw her, she smiled and ran to her. That meeting didn't just end a chapter. It ended a legacy of silence she had been carrying her entire life. The day after the meeting, she woke up to sunlight streaming through the blinds. Not the heavy kind that mocked her grief, but the kind that gently reminded her. You made it through the storm. Sophia was still asleep, curled under her favorite fox blanket, her mouth slightly open, her cheeks finally free of tension. The apartment, her late husband's apartment, felt different. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like a place she was clinging to. It felt like home. She made coffee, sat at the small dining table, and opened her laptop. The freelance jobs were steady, but something in her wanted more now. Not more money, more purpose. And that's when it came to her. She began designing a small online shop, a blend of digital prints, empowering quotes for single mothers, child-friendly art kits, and a simple mission. Art that speaks when you can't. She called it Z plus E Studio. Within a month, they had over 10,000 followers on Instagram. Orders came in steadily. Parenting pages began reposting her designs. A children's charity reached out to collaborate. Sophia helped with packaging and even designed a few doodles of her own that they turned into stickers. She would hold them up and ask, "Do you think other kids like this?" "I think they'll love it," she'd say. And people did. The same community that rallied behind Sophia's voice now supported their healing. Monica checked in often, more like a mentor than a mother-in-law. Tina became a regular visitor, bringing cookies and updates about the world they had quietly stepped away from. Agatha tried a few more times to control the narrative online, but the damage was done. Her voice had lost its grip. Judith and Raphael obeyed the restraining order, mostly because they didn't want further public backlash. But also, she believed, because deep down, they knew they'd crossed a line they could never walk back from. She wasn't angry anymore, just done. One evening, as Sophia and she sat on the floor surrounded by sketchbooks and snack wrappers, the little girl looked up and asked, "Is this what normal feels like?" She thought for a moment. "Not just normal," she said. "This is what safe feels like." Sophia leaned against her, still holding her pencil, and whispered, "I like it here." And she realized she didn't just win a case. She didn't just silence the people who hurt them. She built something better in their place, something real, something theirs. It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon. Sophia was at her desk drawing a fox in a superhero cape. She was responding to customer emails from the shop when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something in her said she needed to. She picked up. "Anita," came the voice. "Lo, familiar." Her father. She said nothing. "I'm not good at this," he began. "Never have been. But that day in the meeting, I heard what you said, and I realized I should have said something a long time ago." Her hand tightened around the phone. He continued, "We hurt you. Not just now, for years. And I let it happen. I don't expect forgiveness. I needed you to hear that at least once." There was a long pause, the kind that echoes louder than words. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Then she added, "But I'm not carrying this anymore." He let out a breath. "I understand." And then he hung up. No pleading. No excuses. Just the sound of a door closing for good. That night, she pulled out an old photo album she had stored in the back of the closet. The cover was worn, its corners bent. Inside were pages and pages of family photos from when Agatha and she were kids. Birthday parties, vacations, graduations. Almost every picture centered around Agatha. In one holiday photo, she was only half visible, hidden behind the tree. Forgotten even in print. Sophia sat beside her and flipped through the pages. She pointed to the picture with the tree. "Why weren't you in more pictures?" She smiled faintly and brushed the little girl's hair behind her ear. "Because they didn't see me," she said. "Not the way I needed them to." Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she closed the album, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "I see you." That was it. The words she didn't know she had been waiting her whole life to hear. She hugged Sophia tightly and let the tears fall. Not because she was broken, not because she was angry, but because she was finally free. The next day, Anita James packed that photo album into a cardboard box and slid it into the back of the closet. Not out of hatred, not to erase the past, but simply to make room for the life she and Sophia were now building. One built not on duty or silence, but on truth, choice, and love. A few weeks later, she did something she hadn't done in years. She booked a trip just for herself and Sophia. No obligations, no family, no hidden guilt in the shadows. Sedona, Arizona. It had been her dream destination for a long time. Something about the red rocks, the open sky, and the silence of the desert had always called to her. But there had always been some excuse to cancel. Not this time. They stayed in a small cedar cabin tucked just beneath the cliffs. There were no neighbors, no noise, no pressure to perform or prove anything. Just them. Sophia ran along the hiking trails during the day, collecting little stones and pointing out shapes in the clouds. At night, they sat outside wrapped in thick blankets, sipping hot cocoa and tracing constellations. There was no internet, No calls from lawyers, no reminders of Agatha James's betrayal or Judith and Raphael's absence. Just wind, stars, and peace. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the horizon and turned the rocks gold, Sophia and Anita sat on a wooden bench overlooking the valley. Sophia leaned her head against her shoulder, her legs swinging freely. "Do you think they miss us?" she asked softly. Anita didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Maybe," she said, "but missing someone doesn't mean they were good to you." Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then, with all the calm wisdom of a child who had already lived through more than most adults, she asked, "Will we see them again?" Anita took a breath. "Maybe," she said truthfully, "but not if it means we have to be small to fit into their world." Sophia nodded slowly, letting her words settle deep. She looked up at the sky. "I like our world better." "So do I," Anita whispered, and she meant it. She hadn't just walked away from a family meeting that day. She had walked away from a lifetime of silence, shame, and trying to be enough for people who only ever saw her as a shadow. She had walked into a new life, a better one. One where her daughter knew she mattered. One where she finally knew she did, too. And as they sat there, the desert wind brushing through their hair and the stars beginning to blink awake above them, Anita realized something. This wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning.